Are you serious? How did I get suckered into this? Everyone has had this happen in some shape or form, am I right? In what way, you ask? You know, bamboozled by those pesky advertisers, especially when it pertains to those companion games, which get thrown into the mix when a fresh new blockbuster release comes out for the holidays. Those multi-platform titles that often pass as the real deal, only come to find out, their handheld or prior generation release have been outsourced to a completely different development team. On the surface, they appear to hail from the same greats that made the original, yet once their seal is broken, you find all that heart-pounding action that was promised ends up being nothing more than a wet shard in comparison. The biggest crime they commit is the fact they weren't marketed that way. Sure, you could manage to put the clues together through close inspection of those magazine screen grabs, but most kids were merely approaching these ads at face value. And after you purchased that game with weeks and months of your hard-earned allowance, you knew you got duped the moment you hit that power switch. Just like today's episode suggests, my fate was sealed the moment that initial text flashed across my Game Gear screen. Well, some bitch, developed by Novotrade. Well played, Sega. I'll tell you straight up here and now, there ain't no trade value in this here Novotrade. So be warned, if you're looking to pass this off on the secondhand market, this game is notoriously known for being downright unplayable. For a show as beloved as Batman the Animated Series, this shit right here is unforgivable. I'm not sure why Konami would steer clear of this handheld release, especially when they crushed the Game Boy game. Regardless, something was up. You know, come to think of it, I don't believe Konami ever made an appearance on the Game Gear. Perhaps it was a combination of hardware specs, and the fact that Nintendo had a pretty tight stranglehold on third-party developers. Whatever the case may be, this just placed another nail in the coffin of the Game Gear. Besides, I could find a few other things to spend my hard-earned cash on than another 6-pack of Duracells to get this pixelated mess up and running. Look, most of us have grown throughout the years, matured to the point we can go back and reassess underlying circumstances which factor into many of these unfortunate releases, variables that plagued a good portion of the cult classics. It's fun to just study the subject matter at hand, pinpointing when and where events occurred leading to their rise or fall. Much like many relics of our childhood, perhaps this one is deserving of a second chance, a replay to go along with this narration that I call the Rockin' Cat dub, in hopes to spark some interest in the short-lived career of the poor Sega Game Gear. Who am I kidding? This game is the drizzling shits, but we're gonna tackle it anyway because that's what we do here. After Mr. Freeze's crippling defeat at the hands of the Bat, the Joker would look to take matters into his own hands once more. I mean, who better than the Joker to lead the ship here, especially with the cast of misfits we have on board this cruiser. There's not too many captains that can fill his shoes. He's resilient to all hell and able to rebound from just about anything Batman throws at him. With the power shifting back to the Joker, he would craft a plan to hit the Batman where it counts the most. With eyes now set on the home front, you gotta hit him where it counts if you want to stand a chance, and the Joker would do just that, with a shot through the heart no less, abducting his faithful sidekick Robin. This strike would mentally and physically cripple the Bat, leaving him vulnerable to the ever-growing rogues gallery of villains that have a hit on his head. Speaking of a hit, what better way to execute one than with some friendly competition? First one to behead the Bat wins the moniker of the Gotham Bat Slayer. And with our hero now dangling like a carrot on a string, he would have no other choice but to comply with this madman's demands, coming out of hiding to engage in these dastardly games. A rat race across Gotham, with competitors hand-selected by yours truly. Who will be the one to end the Bat first? With Batman now forced into this deadly game of mousetrap, he uses the opportunity to dig up clues on the whereabouts of his partner in crime. How these events turn out is still a mystery to me. Personally, I've never met a single soul brave enough to tackle these trials today, but we gotta do what we gotta do. So it's time to hit the ground running as our caped crusader takes to the night, battling his way across Gotham for the very first time on the Game Gear. As the inaugural Joker games begin, our first contestant up to slay the Batman is none other than the Mad Hatter, whom has set up a new studio now located in the heart of the city, which is currently protected by the local street gangs that roam the inner city slums. You'll need to get accustomed to your platforming from the very beginning because these are the most horrendous controls you will come across in a Batman game. The sequence you're witnessing before you is going to be the standard going forward. Pair this with an aggressive screen crunch and some piss-poor collision detection, and you got yourself a recipe for disaster. Scaling your surroundings is essentially your Achilles heel. It's easy to misstep due to piss-poor physics and lack of input recognition. If you commit to a jump without angling your stride, you seem to lose a bit of your height on your vertical, just barely missing that desired ledge. Batsy has a double jump that essentially resolves the issue. However, that too is poor in execution, often finding you overshooting your shot. Batsy's hand-to-hand combat looks to be about as effective as a hand in the pants because the dude looks as if he's more concerned with spanking it in his free time than busting some ass here, gyrating all about as his opponent appears just as bothered by what's unfolding before them. His go-to sub-weapon from the start is his trusty Batarang, but it feels far less fluid in motion than ones we've been accustomed to in those crucial scenarios. Here, it feels much more like any plain old projectile we've come across. On the plus side, you have an infinite supply of them, but you're gonna have to toss a few of them out at all times to really deal any significant damage. You've also got a few additional upgrades to add to your bat belt. They need to be searched out and come in quantities of 10, but they're able to be stacked up in a well-needed upgrade late stage. 4 in total, including a returning bat bola and a few variations on the throwing stars. They don't vary too much outside aesthetics. You'll be choosing them simply due to their power and the sheer fact that you'll grow tired of spamming batarangs in due time. If you want to do some real damage, then stack up on explosives, especially for tankier enemies. It's going to save you some time and resources in the long run. Once you locate the Hatter's studio, you will be greeted by his old guard cat hanging out front the vicinity. He's been scaled back a bit since our prior encounters, just hanging out atop the fence post, pawing away at the bat. This is the perfect time to test out our new items, as the bulk of these do significantly more damage than your standard Batarang does. So, if you got something stored up in your reserves, then fire away, sending this alley cat back to its owner, as you're now able to explore the new stage sets that Hatter has in store for you. These Enter Studios appear to have made a few budget cuts as of late. Perhaps his previous performance was a bust, or Hollywood just ain't paying the bills. But one thing's for sure here, times are tough, and you'll be navigating an assortment of maze-like stage sets filled with scaffolds to climb across as you navigate the inner workings. There's a few recycled props from our adventures across the Genesis, along with a few new faces that are looking for a partner for their latest duet. This maze of mousetraps is littered with quirky set pieces and random to all hell platforming segments that are chaotic in design. By the time you're halfway through a section, you'll start to question how many right turns you've made down these halls, assuming you're still on the destined path. This will keep you guessing till you sniff out a rat, who rides on in, strapped to the back of his latest magic act. He will hover throughout the room, anticipating your next move, and as you look to plan your offense, you'll need to factor in the sheer crunch of the room itself, as it causes more harm than the actual projectiles being thrown out at us. If the fight starts to get out of hand early, you can quickly put things to bed here with a few explosives, sending him packing for another Hollywood recasting. Our next destination leads us to GothCorp, where Freeze now resides, the headquarters of a bitter and broken man now dwelling in his own chilling misery. An ice prison, frozen solid right down to the furnishings inside his lobby. The dude is being a bit excessive here, but to each their own. The interior lobby is flooded with mobsters and ice performers looking to do the bidding of their boss man. In order to scale this facility, you'll need to take a series of elevators up past the highest level of security in order to scale the frozen fortress. You'll spend a good amount of time mapping out each path too, quickly finding your reserves depleted by the constant attempts to clear these bullshit platforms, which is damn near impossible due to these busted ass controls. This will cause you to hash it out with an endless loop of frozen fanatics looking to stop you at every turn. The platforming becomes full-blown stupid the further you climb this frozen summit, forcing you to perform leaps of faith in hopes a platform manifests beneath you. The combination of climbing the frozen perimeter while picking off snipers attached to the structure is an absolute nightmare. A flippin' mess at its very best, and you'll be forced to have pinpoint accuracy while executing under uncontrollable physics. Reaching freeze is more of an accomplishment than a climactic encounter. You can simply stand before him, taking a few rounds just to put him away moments later. By now, you're numb to it all anyway. I doubt this poor bastard even registers pain anyway. With freeze bested yet again, you'll need to get a jump on the Scarecrow's plans sooner than later. That is, if you wish to reunite with your trusty sidekick in one piece. However, upon reaching the university, Batsy finds he's taken a turn for the worse after coming in contact with a lethal dose of fear gas, which now has him straight up tripping balls here. He begins to go into a psychosis, visualizing the university walls closing in on him, now transforming these corridors into his own personal prison grounds. These cell blocks are reinforced with traps at every turn, moving about with no rhyme or reason. Don't be fooled by the scare tactics here. These highly surveillance chambers are simply another maze dressed up with a fresh coat of paint. Platforms that plagued us prior that house familiar faces which roam freely throughout this prison yard. There need to be dealt with prior to navigating past a series of predictably placed death sentences. In time, the Scarecrow will up the ante here, pumping more fear gas into the chambers as Batsy discovers a brand new plane here in the afterlife. A graveyard of haunts. Do we die back in the prison? Who knows? What matters most at the moment is this fresh change of scenery rather than another act filled with the same bland imagery. There's a slew of unique enemies and set pieces to interact with, which looks to be where most of the creative energy was spent. However, don't let the gas go to your brain just yet. We still got a hike ahead of us, so snap out of it long enough to locate the Scarecrow, as he will be waiting deep inside the cemetery to bury you alive. He's dug out an early grave for one individual destined for the afterlife. A battle across the cemetery that finds you tiptoeing across the gravel beneath your feet as the Scarecrow hurls a series of explosives into the graveyard. This fight has got some NES Nightmare on Elm Street vibes about it, as if you've witnessed another night terror deep inside the neighborhood. Unfortunately, I'd rather be playing just that, so end this fight quickly, delivering this Scarecrow a reality check as you soon end this foolish game of smoke and mirrors. With our contestants back behind bars, it's time to say hello to the host of this game show, and what better place to do just that than the greatest place on earth. No, not Disney World, folks, a place even better. Welcome to Jokerland, a theme park built from another man's vision. He hasn't been pulling the same list of clientele he did across the Super NES. This place is pretty bare bones and lacking in the attractions department. Be sure to stop by guest services too to rough up the hired help, because you'll be more than ready to close up shop once inside. To do so, you'll have to make your way through a lengthy assortment of line queues, riddled with a large assortment of animatronics, scanning the perimeter, looking to entertain the bat with some twisted theatrics. Once you reach the front of the line, the show soon begins and the curtains pull back, revealing a returning Harley. For this opener, she'll zip back and forth in her personal Joker plane for a spectacle of firepower. So chip away at this rinky-dink chopper till you place this attraction out of service. With Harley out of the picture, continue to fight your way through this angry mob of tourists till you finally get that meet and greet with the Joker you've been anticipating. Unfortunately, he's got no tricks up his sleeve, as if he wasn't expecting you to make it this far. Interesting, the developers apparently didn't either. Just a one-on-one, bare-bones brawl with our favorite foe. Just as soon as the two of you lock up, he will look to exit stage right, keeping you at arm's length with some deadly Molotovs. If you think this is just a tip of his routine, you're sadly mistaken. He's an act with no gimmick, no stage presence, and worst of all, none of that magic the Joker is known for. So do him a favor and put him out of his misery here. With enough patience, you'll easily triumph in this final hour, putting the Joker back in the hot seat as this anticlimactic stint of his goes up in smokes. With the Joker bested, Batman is able to locate Robin from his confinement, quickly freeing our partner from this funhouse as our two heroes close out this season in celebration. A win for Team Batman today. and making the streets of Gotham safe again, at least for now. Something tells me this won't be the last time we see the Joker pull a stunt like this. Only time will tell, I guess. The Adventures of Batman and Robin on the Sega Game Gear is a sloppy shop that was destined to flop. It's an example of passing the buck when that particular buck had the potential to pay off when it counted the most, especially when in a dogfight with the juggernaut that was a Nintendo Game Boy. Although a good deal of third-party support was limited due to exclusivity with Nintendo at the time, this game, however, had a great deal of raw potential that, if placed in the right hands at Sega, would have blossomed into something truly spectacular. The thought of giving fans a pint-sized animated Batman experience in full color is an absolute system seller. The game undoubtedly looks fantastic on the Game Gear hardware, but takes a massive hit in the controls, so much so it cripples the experience. It's an example of rushing a good thing out to market before allowing it to simmer first, addressing the problems that are on the horizon instead of allowing them to boil over to the consumer. If these small issues were addressed, this would easily be a top-tier Game Gear exclusive. What we got in return was a lot of what-if questions. There's still a few offerings here to explore, whether that be through its bright and colorful visuals or the depth and content throughout here. It's essentially a pint-sized animated season chopped up into 4 episodic adventures, placing the spotlight on 4 of the very best villains Gotham has to offer. If you're someone that enjoys learning about classic gaming, then the frustrations are indeed warranted. To me, you have to take the good with the bad in order to fully appreciate many of these early works. If not, then hey, you can always watch a poor bloke like myself take a crack at it. Regardless, it's an interesting piece of gaming history that, for better or worse, has its place in the vast universe of The Dark Knight.